Welcome to the workshop on growth. We can all do a stretch. Just to get us, we're going to try and be quite informal in our approach to this workshop because there are so many elements of growth out there and so many different types of people in the audience. So just to try and get my lovely esteemed panel, I'll introduce them, you're all up here. Just let's find out who you are. Who in the room, I'm going to ask you how many branches you have because that's part of the Home Care Association's membership, isn't it? It's different type based on branches. So I'm Caroline Stafford, I'm on the board of the Home Care Association now, representing the small, so I've got one branch. So how many people else have got 1 to 3 branches? Okay, and then let's go 5 or 4 to 10, yeah, and above that, and way above that. Okay, so there's a few big, and who has no branches at all, not even started a home care company or working somewhere else? Someone looking to start one? Yes, a couple of people. That's good, good luck with that. I had blonde hair when I started, it's still very silly. And what else could we do with knowing? I suppose the thing to do is to know who these guys are. What I'd like to know is why you're here, and I'm sure you chose this subject because of a particular question. So let's reassure you that this panel is more than capable of asking your question that you came with. So we're going to crack on and ask them some questions, but they're all very happy to answer the questions I'm not asking. So do if we get sort of towards the end of this and you've got a burning question that isn't on my list here, please ask it because we'd like to. Yes, there you are.
Can we ask another question?
You can.
How many of us are currently experiencing growth?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's one of the 2 questions. So how many are not growing at the moment? How many people since the pandemic are stuck? Yes, me too. Stuck. Even the big guys are stuck. Yes, because this is a big company. Okay. And whose ambition is a 10% growth in the next year or 2? I'm going to go up. 10, 20. Should go the other way. 20, 30% growth. 40 to 60% growth, big guns, 100% growth. He wants to double or something, you just haven't even opened yet, so that's easy. Yeah, it's interesting, and how much stress is that going to cause to the people who work for you in terms of how you deliver the message around growth and what that looks like. And also, is it growth at any cost? You know, is it growth that's profitable? Because there's not much, but what do they say about turnover being vanity and profit being sanity, which I remind myself quite often when someone asks for more money on the payroll or more money in equipment or where's that tech money going to come from. So let me introduce the panel. I said everything. Yeah, so let me introduce myself and then the panel. So I'm Caroline. I opened a care company as a physiotherapist. I'm a physiotherapist, so I set up Doris Jones, named after my grandmother, 12 years ago, and we look after about 130 people in Southend-on-Sea, near the pier, on the seaside. And so it's quite an elderly population, and we've got a nice outstanding rating. And we're not looking, growth-wise, I'm not looking for doubling it. I just reckon it probably needs to go back to where it was pre-pandemic, which is probably another 300 or 400 hours, take me from 1,000 to 1,400 a week in hours, roughly. So that's my ambition for this one branch business, high quality, local business, that's me. So this panel is esteemed and quite diverse, we're very lucky. So we have Trudy in the middle there, who has, you've just heard about, with Bellevue Care, who are really, she's the disruptor. She's the one you go, oh, I don't know if you're right, I don't know if you're wrong. She makes me nervous because she's got such different ideas and using a different model and obviously looking very carefully at the research around the different models. So Trudy will tell you about herself. There's Jose Louis at the end there, is the business director of Khaleesi Care. And Khaleesi Care is one of those very large providers of state-funded care, predominantly, all over the UK. And have you got different brands under you?
Yes.
Yes, so you weren't necessarily seeing Khaleesi Care, but you might have seen some of the other branded companies around you. Roger is on the end here, and Roger is a network. He has Care Santé, and they now have 16 branches and have developed those branches within a few years very quickly, so that would be an interesting growth story. And then last but not least is Amrit, who is the CEO of Wolfrinch, who are franchising home care businesses, and they're up to 30 of those. So we're all quite different, but we're all delivering very similar outcomes, hopefully. So I'm going to ask them a question, and I'm going to see if they can come up with the same, different answers to the same question. So shall I start with? Let's start with Trudy, because yours is probably just at the moment is probably the smallest, isn't it? Which is probably a bit more like people in the room. So the question is for each person is, what is your version of growth for your business? So Trudy, do you like to give us a?
It's always worrying when you get introduced as the disruptor on the panel, isn't it? I promise I'm well behaved as well. But we are trying to disrupt the sector because, and we've heard a lot about it today, new models of care. So that's what I'm about. But I am the smallest, so hopefully you'll hear lots. And we're growing. And what we're growing though, which is I think really important, is that we're growing our social impact. And that's been a very key part of what we're doing. So we want to reach more people. It's less about the revenue. So just some facts first, you know what we do. So we provide visiting care, no live-in, and the model is a Buurtzorg-inspired model. So that means small self-managing teams, so around 8-ish care workers in a team, recruited from the local community, supporting their local community, and they make the day-to-day decisions on how to deliver the best care. And no, that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all and it's not regulated or governed. It means that we trust and empower, but we also have transparency. We talk about things like ruthless transparency and ruthless compassion. And they are supported by a network of coaches. We don't have any managers in our organisation at all. That doesn't mean we have no hierarchy, it's flatter, but we still believe in leadership. The leaders set the what and the direction, but we don't tell people how. We let people work that out, supported by coaches. So we've been operational about 4.5 years. We spent the first kind of 18 months, 2 years, really just working out how on earth this model could work. We've seen it in the Netherlands, but it's different, different culture, different funding, lots of differences. So that was lots of testing and learning. And then since that, when we worked out, we've got it, then we started scaling and building. So we're in 3 regions now, and we've got plans to grow more. I suppose the other differences are, just to name a few, and then you can take the conversation where you want it, is because we're not time and task, we wanted something different. It's outcome focused. So we pay for whole shifts, so we don't charge per hour either. So we charge a monthly membership, so that's a difference. We found that the tech that was off the shelf didn't work for our teams, particularly rotas. The rotas relied on a manager somewhere in an office telling people where to go, even though they'd never met any of the people they were supporting. They apparently knew best. And we were like, that's not working for us. And actually, I'm not sure it works for other providers I see, where they say, well, that's where you get, the good managers are the ones that were care workers or still were out in the field. So we just went, right, we'll build our own tech. So we did. That happens to be my background. I used to be a software developer. I spent 17 years in IT. So that's another big difference. And also because this is about impact and about quality and outcomes, money is always a challenge. We've managed to get some impact investors on board, and we've attracted some grant funding for our technology so that we can be an accredited real living wage employer. So we're really trying to lift, raise the value of care. And our vision as a company is to create a world where everybody in the care ecosystem, those providing care and those receiving care, everybody feels valued and supported.
Lovely, thank you. And shall we go the other way? Let's go to Jose at the end there and tell us about the challenges of growing for a much larger organisation.
Let's go to the difference. Can you hear me well? Yeah, I can do anything with my accent. I'm very sorry. This is it. We are Clissy Care Services. We have been working in providing care in the country for 10 years now, starting in 2013. We are part of a larger, bigger company, as you can imagine. It's Spanish, but don't worry, we are only 3 Spanish guys here in the UK. And our business model has been based on by acquiring local strong companies, just for us to position in the locality and invest in these companies to develop them and grow then organically from there. Currently, we got more or less 50%. The growth has been by acquisition, and the other 50% has been growth or organic. We mainly we are mainly clients are local authorities. Mainly, we also love private, but mainly our organization structure is mainly based on public authority, only providing home care. We have no more services in the UK at the moment. And for me, the most important at the end, all this achievement during these 10 years have been at the end that today we have a lot of brands, more than 15 brands. It's quite challenging. So and at the end, we are more than we employ more than 6,000 employees, providing care for 12,000 service users. And the most challenging for me is that we provide more than 200,000 visits every week. So which is obviously a very different model, and obviously requirement structures is quite different. But yeah, more or less this is us.
And what's the ambition for growth, do you think?
Well, obviously we are private funded a group, and obviously today is a big challenge for big players and small players, for everybody to maintain the financial stability of our companies. And I think this is today the problem we got as a sector. So we hear about the lack of funding, and who is not concerned today what is going to happen in April with a 10% increase. So yeah, this is the current situation.
It's interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter how big or small you are, those things you can't control have a big impact. Like suddenly being asked to pay 10% more, or it could be 20% more if you listen to someone else. So yeah, you're right. You can grow organically, but you're still limited by who you can recruit and when.
Yeah.
Let's move to Anne-Marie then. Tell us a bit about Wolfinch and where you're at now and what your growth ambitions are.
Great. So hi, I'm Amrit, and very pleased to be here today. Wolfinch started in 2019, so still quite young. I've been in home care for over 10 years now. I started as a franchisee and just thought, much like Trudy actually in many ways, that there was probably more to give and things could be shaken up a bit for people that wanted to come into the industry from other industries and just didn't really quite have that blueprint. So that was where the kind of brainchild came from. And we've grown year on year, and currently at about 30 locations. I think in the last 12 months grew by about 58%, and found that actually even our more established locations, for example, we've got Oxfordshire here, and they grew by maybe 25 or 26% in the last 12 months. One of the things that I found is that often we're missing easy wins, and I don't know about anybody else, but I was a little bit mind blown by the numbers and the statistics that Jose was saying, thinking about the number of visits a week. But one of the simple things and simple wins that we can, as an industry, pull together is looking at charge rates and saying, well, actually, are we going to be doing work at X rates? And if we just looked at that and said, how many of us are actually forecasting how much it costs us to provide care when we're talking about supervisors, rent costs, all the additional auditing and so on. So really getting into that, and we spend a lot of time on that. So maybe half of our growth probably came from just looking at rates and educating our franchisees to grow their hourly rates. And we're very fortunate that within franchising, you're essentially getting local managing directors that understand the area. So we've got Greg Rank here from Mid and South Buckinghamshire, who lives in the area, understands the area, and it's hyper-local, because these businesses are hyper-local, especially when they're private businesses. So next 12 months we're probably looking at over 25% of growth, and that is a combination of just organic growth of hours, but also looking at charge rates and passing on that cost of living to clients.
And Roger, do you want to tell us about yours? I'm itching to ask you more questions. Jonathan, tell us about
Hi everybody. I've been doing home care for 28 years. That's why I've got no hair anymore. I've run some of the largest home care businesses in the UK. Starting off in the KUK organisation, I currently have 16 locations, which we started in 2021. My growth has been through acquisitions on the one hand, contract wins on the other, and organic growth on the third. Truly does it the right way. That is the preaching that I've tried to do over that nearly 30 years. And unfortunately, at scale, it's pretty much impossible to do because local authorities who broadly provide the scale, if you want to do it on a larger scale, will not buy care in that way. It's been a mix of acquisitions, which I can talk about if you want to hear about it, contract wins, which I can also talk about. My strength is on growing through local authority work primarily, less so on the private side. Others can talk about private, but that's me. I've been around this for a long time.
Thank you. Are there any questions that spring to mind? I've got another question. Anything anybody wants a bit more detail on? Yes? No? Okay. So my question for you all really is, what keeps you awake at night? And I use that term often in my staff trainings. Like when I get to meds training, I say, now this is the one that keeps you awake at night. But it doesn't say much anymore that it's digitalised. It doesn't. But there are things around growth where I bet everybody who's trying to grow has got something about recruitment, something about people, and quite possibly about efficiency. But I'd be interested to know, should we just go back in that order then? Roger, tell me what keeps you awake at night.
Two things at the moment. One is cash. If you're growing, what you need to remember is you will first have to pay the wages for your care staff before you get paid by your customers, unless you have got predominantly private customers where you've got good arrangements with them. So you always need to ensure that you've got enough money in the bank, or you've got a borrowing facility or invoice financing, which the latter, which can be quite attractive. So that's a pointer. And the second major thing is mix of work. Increasingly, if you're focused on local authority work, the margins that you get are lower, even though the volume is higher. But you can very often find that you've got one or two private clients within your portfolio, and those private clients will commonly have more care than a given client who is local authority funded. And it's very easy, especially as your business gets bigger, to look at a location and think, oh yeah, that's okay. What you don't necessarily realise is if you lose one larger private client, the impact on the overall financial profile of that business is considerable compared to losing one or two or three local authority funded clients. So you need to be careful of the mix, and that means that you need a route through to getting private clients alongside your local authority offerings. The bigger providers will have a large marketing budget, which a smaller provider won't, so you need to find a way to get access to the local market, and that would usually come through having a good contact with the local authority, even though you might not want to deliver to the local authority, but they will refer people who've come through who don't qualify for local authority funding. And also legwork, leaflet drops, being present in the local community. There's nothing better than that for getting private clients, and then the word of mouth starts to go. Those are the two things, mix and cash.
I think from my point of view, as well as a small provider, we only do private clients and only ever set out to do them, was the low-hanging fruit of who knows you, where you're going to start. So the lady at the back is just starting. You need to be really good at your elevator pitch. You know, how quickly can you tell someone what you do and get them to tell everybody they know that you're going to be a great care company. You know, that immediate marketing thing, and then reputation is everything, isn't it? You know, I mean, I look at and keep asking where they come from, so you can get more of those people. So every time whoever's answering your new inquiries phone call, make sure they ask how did you hear about us, because they are so important. Those things. When I look back at how we've grown, those initial questions were, oh, well, Caroline was my mum's visit, or Caroline, and now they don't know who I am. Now it's, oh, you look after my friend's mum, that's the best reputation. So your budget for marketing and spending, leaflets can end up on one. How many times do you kick the leaflets out of the way when you come home in the evening? So you've got to be very targeted. That, as you say, local knowledge is so important, is that knowing which groups, where can be right. And it's legwork, isn't it? You've got to get out there and find the people that are your people. And I'm pretty confident that I can do a private owned business successfully in one small town, as long as we keep a presence that's got a good reputation. And we just keep talking to people anyway. On the train this morning, Hampton Carter. Let's go in a different. So Amrit, what keeps you awake at night?
I suppose my thinking is slightly different on this, because there's the obvious aspects of recruitment and minimum wage rising, etc. But actually, as a franchisor and looking at growth year on year, one of the things that keeps me awake at night is development of leaders. So that kind of leadership and infrastructure piece, I think, is actually probably the most important thing in a growing home care business or any business. And it's probably the thing that we invest in as an industry the least. So we talk a lot about technology and so on, but if you've got leaders that aren't interested in that, or they're not interested in development of their staff, or they are not open to that growth, that is problematic. So I know that a year 4 or year 5 franchisee will start to plateau. I've been that franchisee myself. Unless you inject leadership, skills in those guys and say, right, okay, this is it. This is the next stage on of growth. This is the kind of whole Jim Collins. I don't know if anyone's read his book, Good to Great, all about getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. And I've been through that cycle myself many times, and you realise that your business will grow at a much faster rate with the right management team, the right leadership in place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And when you bring in the wrong leader or the wrong person and they haven't got that skills, you need to get rid of them fast, because they can do so much damage. I had a registered manager who came from another service. The other service wasn't great. She said she came to us because it wasn't great, but actually she had absolutely no concept in how to run an outstanding department. Everybody had to be on the same page, so you're absolutely right.
Can I just add something to that comment? I think what I've realised is that people rarely quit jobs, they quit bosses. And I think actually, often if we look at ourselves and say, why is this happening, you'll probably find the answer.
Yeah, I agree. There's lots of self-reflection. And again, when you get feedback or complaints, it's horrible, painful. This is a vulnerable place, being a leader of one of these businesses. It's somebody's mum and it's somebody's vulnerability, and then you've messed up because your name's at the head of the page. It's really vulnerable. It's like pushing water uphill, this job. It's hard, isn't it? It's emotionally quite hard. If we didn't care enough about the end result, we wouldn't be in it, because no one's in this business entirely for the paycheck, because there are a lot easier ways to earn anything. What do we think, Jose? What do you think? What keeps you awake?
I don't want to repeat myself, because obviously we are sharing nightmares and dreams, but probably for me, there are 3 important things, to consider, in a growth strategy that, can apply to a large provider or a small provider, because it's very simple. The first thing is that we need to be compliant. So we cannot forget that this is a regulated sector, and we need to be compliant. So I don't have to tell you how important is, at the end, what CQC represents, and also our contracts. So we say first care and then business. This is for me a key aspect. Second thing will be the money. The money that you need cash. I think we found this accelerating cash flow that somebody put in our table. Probably this is the meeting today. So money is important, and in 2 aspects. One aspect is that because you need cash whether you need millions to invest in a large provider, or you need £500, £1,000 to share with our lovely friends, indeed, to recruit more people. So at the end, money is always important, and more important as well is financial viability of these projects. If you are growing with a bad rate, you'll be
I
struggling.
suppose the question to the room if you, would be how many people actually know how much an hour of care, what's the profit margin, how much does it take, how many, do you know those answers? The Home Care Association does a cost of care per hour, doesn't it? Is yours there? Is it the same as that? Is it less than that? Is it different between different customers? So one of the things I did was a business course which at Cranfield University of Outgrowth, and one of the hardest things to do is to work out who's your best customer. Who's the customer who is the ones you want more of because they're actually the most profitable. And I would have said at the beginning of that course, it was the £1,200 a week for double-handed care, 4 times a day, 5 times a day. In actual fact, the burden of other stuff, phone calls to the district nurses, changes to the schedule, to the meds, phoning the pharmacist, chasing all the other people involved in that person's life, nipping out to do reviews, sending an OT, and all those things made those people actually the least profitable people. And so we actually set a goal that our most profitable person was the relatively well, will probably be with us for 5 years, is going to start with once or twice a day and probably is going to go up. And then we keep an eye on the double-handed 4 times a day because actually they're a cliff off which they're just about to drop, which is what Roger was saying, really, isn't it? So really understanding who your customers are and where they fit into the cost of care is, if you don't know those numbers, you need to go away and find someone to show you how to work them out, I think, money-wise. Trudy, what keeps you awake at night?
Other than my husband snoring here, but that's generally resolved with a quick shove. So, and can I just build on something you were saying? Caroline, before I say my 2 things that keep me awake at night, because what you were saying just now was perfect about knowing your customers and really understanding the costs, and sometimes with particularly small organisations are guilty of not knowing that. But then there are also other ways of looking at that. So I talked earlier that one of our differences is that we don't charge per hour, it's monthly membership. So we've done some really detailed data analysis to really know our customers, and for a client like you described, that's an expensive monthly fee because it's double-handed 4 times a day. Well, actually, we look at the complexity of care, and that feeds into our pricing calculator because we don't have a pound per hour, because 1 hour of care is not equivalent to another hour of care. And if we want to make sure that we're genuinely about outcomes, then that means that the care worker shouldn't be thinking, oh, but what this person really needs is for me to go into the pharmacist in person and sort out whatever's going wrong with their meds, or hang on the phone to the GP, or sort something else out around our house, finds a tradesperson for whatever. But the more complex the package is, those other stuff, there's going to be more of that other stuff. So we factor that into the price.
And they have an impact on everybody else, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And no one wants to feel guilty about that. So take it
But
away.
also emotionally, that's hard work for that staff member who's emotionally involved and attached. So supervising and monitoring that person to make sure that they're not on burnout because they're so caring is also an expense that you've got to factor into that more complex case. It's way more. Somebody said earlier in one of the things I heard today was that the software doesn't account for it. Accounts for the visits if you use that software. That's sort of the standard robotic software. It's great. We've used it for years. It does the job of telling you where you're going to do what. What it doesn't account for, which is what someone was saying, is what about all the other things that we do? Every phone call that's made by the office to the GP, every review of their care, all the things that we don't charge for separately, we don't necessarily clock. There is no software that's clocking that, like your accountant does. If you have that, you've got all this list of when you pick up the phone, 5-minute phone call, 250. Other businesses are better at understanding the cost per minute or per hour, or whatever it is. And of course, the expertise in the office to deliver those things, the people that are backing up the care workers. So for us, for example, what would be a problem would be if a care worker in the home working, rang a district nurse but had to move on to somewhere else. We would want to know, well, someone else has got to chase the district nurse service, what was the outcome of the district nurse service. So all the detail around really providing good quality care where you do actually bother to communicate with everybody else and then filter that information is very, very expensive. And I'm personally about £12 an hour, as I do charge per hour, away from what the local authority would pay for an hour of care. So they're at 19, I'm at 32, so miles off. But that's where the quality comes from, is the other spend in all the other stuff. So So keeping you awake at night then, apart from your husband.
Yes, go on. So what keeps me awake is, so one thing is matching supply and demand. So the demand for care and support versus the supply of care workers, because guess what? You never get the same amount at the same time, whatever it is. And maybe this is more of a symptom of kind of our size. It's really interesting hearing the differences. So we've got 3, we call them circles of teams, equivalent to branches. And I think quite a lot of hands went up for that kind of size. And it's looking at the different areas, and there might be one where it's like recruitment's going great guns, but actually we haven't got enough work for them, and the other way around. And because we pay for guaranteed shifts, that, we take on that risk rather than using 0-hour contracts. So that's so balancing that, and the answer, which it's not simple, but is to try and look forward, do that forward planning and predict, and just we use our and having our own build system, our own rostering system, which I think you quite eloquently described. One of the many reasons why we built our own is allowing us to do that with our forecasting, and it leads into our payroll, and later this year we'll be leading into invoicing as well. So trying to get there, but it does still keep me awake at night. And then the second one is, so we started with self-funders because our aim was to prove a different model of care. And we thought, well, that's going to be tough enough anyway, to try and do that and with local authority contracts at the same time. We couldn't get the spreadsheets to add up, basically. So, well, let's see whether we can get this model to work, and where the family is looking for quality and value for money. And the majority of our revenue comes from self-funders. Now, we could just carry on in that route, but I never wanted to create a 2-tier system. And I would like to democratise access to quality care. So we do some work. One of our regions is 50% of their income comes from the local council. So it's really interesting hearing your comments, Roger, and we're seeing some of those things balancing the self-funders and the council. But it's really hard work, and I say we haven't solved that yet. So we're testing and learning. So that's our current area for growth. We want that scale. We see where the volume is, but we are never going to compromise on things like being a real living wage accredited employer, and we're not going to compromise on paying for whole shifts. Getting that to work with commissioners who are under immense stress is hard work, but I refuse to say it's impossible. Watch this space.
I think one of the, going back to what someone said in the big room earlier, which had a couple of questions come up, and had a few people over coffee going, they really said that is don't take the contract if it's not at the price you're willing to do it for. But if we all did that, there would be no choice. And so having markets full of businesses that are prepared to take lower and lower rates is not helping anything, because there is a point there. And I thought the way that was put this way was a bit shocking, but there is a point where actually, if we all marched with our feet and said, actually, we're not doing that, we can't do that, there would be a point where, I'm not even sure that Ecclesia Care could manage. If you couldn't take on anybody else's work, it would be enormous, but everybody's mentioned money, and so there is a point where this is not, even when it's run by a charity or not for profit, there's still a demand to be able to change all the computers and the computer systems and to give people a pay rise. One of the things that didn't keep me awake at the beginning of the pandemic was having some spare cash. I knew I had 3 months' salaries, I had 3 months of payroll in the bank, and I was able to say, we didn't know what was coming, it wasn't great, was it? But I was able to call a staff meeting virtually, almost immediately, split the team, all the things we had to do, and say, look, whatever's coming, you will get paid. I've got money in the bank. We've been very careful with money, we've stacked it away, we've always been very prudent around that. And when that black swan event happens, it's quite nice to know that you can pay people, because your level of responsibility is enormous, isn't it, to staff members and the people we look after. It's a unique business, I think, in that we have huge responsibility. How many people feel like a social worker for their staff sometimes? We are signposting people, helping people we're making people little small loans, bigger loans, things to help them through the week. All the things that mean that they'll stay with you, because retention is enormous, isn't it? So I think are there any questions on what keeps you awake at night? What keeps you awake at night? Anybody got anything different? think they're pretty similar things, aren't they?
We handed back a council contract about 3 years ago because we found ourselves in a position where we were bankrolling the CHC and also the council with unpaid bills, which is really quite scary. At the moment, the CHC owes 25 grand, something like that, and getting the money from them is awful. So we just moved to private funding, and the business, it's always been successful, but it's so much better now. The council still do call on us, but it's very much on our terms and at our rate. And in fact, when we gave notice, they came back to us just before we were due to finish and asked us to remain for a further month, and they asked for compensation, which they paid. And I think sometimes we're scared of taking them to account and actually challenging what they're doing to us.
Yeah.
But we're not in a position as small businesses to bankroll the public
The
sector.
investment should be coming from
Absolutely.
your, if you play that game, Roger, you've probably got thoughts on that, but if you play the game of making you're their investment rather than their investment in you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's the big difference between being a small, locally focused organisation, which can look at exactly what you've got locally and make a decision, compared to an organisation like the kind that I run, Jose runs, where you're further away and the person who's local is employed as a manager and might not feel empowered to do that. And it's actually interesting that that's one of the huge differences if you are acquiring a business. If you go out there and buy a business, the ethos of being a large organisation compared to being a small local organisation is completely different, and you lose quite a lot of that local ethos. There's other things that you can bring in as a larger provider, but that local way of working, and quite often getting a deal out of the local authority from a bad situation to a good one can be lost. So if you are thinking of buying a business, that's always something to be very, very, very careful about. But the example of getting rid of a problem and moving to calmer waters is a good one, where there's no doubt about it. It's much easier if you're dealing with private payers than it is dealing with local authorities.
I had one conversation with a large provider in a London borough. They were at 3,000 hours a week, so fairly, that's fairly hefty. And they lost 1,000 for various reasons, pandemic related and stuff. And she said she's never ever going back up to 3,000 again. 2,000 is more profitable, it's more manageable. The scaling up costs are so much that the profit margin just drops so much that you're just working harder for the same. So really understanding where you might be in terms of scale is, I can imagine the cost, Jose, of Clecy Care's just headquarters, people, would be huge. But I wonder how proportionate it is to someone like me who's got 3 of us, trying to earn a living as directors, plus a registered manager and an ops manager. I wonder what the scale might be in terms of...
But don't think that we are big because we provide a lot of care services, but head office is quite. Our model is based on the locality, on the local strong company. So and we as a head office we support this company to grow. But our model is quite different probably, and it's national because we are from north to south, but our companies have autonomy in the region, So and what we do as a head office, we support them. So it's quite probably unique.
Small and beautiful head office. We'll have to go and visit them. What else about keeping you awake at night things? Anything else? Because I've got another question for these guys, which is, what skills do you think you need to help your business grow? Now, we had several conversations planning for this. It's not all of them. But one of the things that struck me was that you might be sitting there thinking, well, actually, I wasn't thinking about that sort of growth. I was thinking about personal growth, CPD, where do I need to go next, what qualification, what might I need? And I know Trudy had looked, when we spoke, she looked at how many of her team, what percentage of her team were doing qualification. So in terms of lateral thinking, leadership, Amrit mentioned, well, leadership courses are quite expensive. Cranfield's business growth program, which I'm very fond of, as I mentioned, is it changed my life. That course, which was about £15,000 investment, which I had to get past my business partners and didn't want to spend it, really, but it changed my life because one of the things it made me evaluate was, what do I want from this business? And I could have 3 branches that looks at an exit strategy. Have you got an exit? Is it something you're setting up in order to sell on? Is it something that's going to be your pension plan? What do you want from the business? So I wonder about what skills do you need for growth, whether personal growth.
Shall I jump with this?
Yeah.
I have the mic. For me, the most important skill is that your capacity to digest. So you want to grow and you want to pick up packages, but you need resources. So you need staff, you need carers, you need office staff, you need an IT, or software that can help you. So that sometimes if you take more than you can, you struggle. And all of us, we have been in this situation. So it's very, very important, to have the right pace and grow safely.
Pace, did you get that? Pace is a thing. I remember writing that about 5 years ago on a New Year's Day list. Pace this year, because it was just been ridiculous pace. Henrik, skills for growth. What do you think?
I think good planning skills are really crucial. So whether that is your personal life or professional life, really thinking about planning the year. I mean, it's a great time of year to have this conference and to have this discussion. But I think writing down on a piece of paper what it is that you're trying to achieve over the next 12 months, break that down into 90-day blocks. I'm a big fan of working 90-day blocks, so whether that's the number of carers that you want to recruit in that time, whether that's the number of service users you want to grow by, or the hourly rate that you're trying to get to in the next 12 months, I think that's really crucial. But actually coupling that with personal life, do you want to get home for bath time or bedtime, whatever it is with your kids, and really building that in, because I think you as a leader are the be-all and end-all, and if you sort of have mental peace and can grow that way, your business will grow. And finally, get a mentor of any description. I think regardless of how big or small you are, or however many years that you've been in business, getting some sort of mentor or coach, and sometimes that might just be someone free of charge. But if you picked up the phone to someone like Roger, who's been in the industry for a couple of years, or anybody, people are really willing to share, and that's one of the beautiful things about franchising, that you've got those sort of inbuilt coaches. But I think if you don't have that, find somebody that is willing to be your sounding board.
We are pretty much at time, so our last minute, one for Trudy, one for Roger.
Okay, I'll make it quicker then. So you come to a session about growth, so I think the skills that you need are, you need to have the human skills and the business skills and get the balance right between the two, and also recognise where your strengths and weaknesses lie. I remember working with an organisation who we nearly partnered with, who were very strong on the care and the human side, but they didn't recognise their weakness in the business side. We ended up not partnering with them because they couldn't see their weakness and weren't willing to learn. When you recognise where your gaps are, then you can find other people, and backing up what Amrit said, what we're all doing, other people admire it. You'll be really amazed at how much free support there is. Pick up the phone, email people, use LinkedIn, it's your friend. Find people who will give you support in the area that you know you're weak at, and ask others what else you need so it's right for you, and get that balance right. Never forget the humans, the human element. Have your vision, have your purpose, get everyone behind it, but also know your data, your numbers, be rigorous about that. This is serious. If you don't have money in the bank, you can't do all that human wonderful benefit that we're all here for.
Thank you. And lastly, Roger.
I actually can't disagree with any of that. So I won't add to it. It's absolutely sound advice all the way around from what everybody's said.
Thank you so much. I need to say a very big thank you to our sponsors of this session, who are Sally Porter here somewhere. Oh, yes, that's Joe. Joe, is it? Yes, that's Joe at the back. They were very happy to talk to you about their invoice finance offering. So thank you to them, and a big thank you to the panel here. First, you put your hands together and put them all. Association is very keen to offer you courses and training on things that are relevant to you. So tell us, tell the Homecare Association what you would like to see on their courses, growth programs, mentoring things. Those as owners, you are the membership of the Homecare Association and we're here to support you. So we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you very much.